Excel has many functions or predefined formulas that you can use to calculate all sorts of things. Earlier in the course, I showed you how to use the sum function here in the editing group on the Home tab. Here's the auto sum button, and if you click the button, you can see the sum function and the average function. There's also a function to count numbers and to find the maximum or the minimum. But there are a lot more functions that you can use, and I'm going to click the Formulas tab. And here's a function library. And notice the auto sum button is also available here. And there are financial functions, logical, text, date and time, and so on. Quite a lot. Gives you an idea of some of the things you might be able to do with functions. If you know the name of a function, you could look for it in its library, but more importantly, if you don't know the name of the function, you can click this Insert Function button. And the function I'm going to look for, I'd like to calculate the payment on a copier that I buy. And the Insert Function box is open here, and I'm just going to type in here, Calculate Payment, and then I'll click Go. The first function in the list here is PMT, and it's described below the list of functions. Calculates the payment for a loan based on constant payments and a constant interest rate. That sounds like what I need, so I'll click OK. This opens the function arguments dialog, and this is where you're going to enter what's called the arguments for the formula. And for the PMT function, the three arguments that are required, they're in bold-faced here, are rate, NPER, and PV. And it's probably hard to know what on earth those are, but you'll find out in just a second. And these two, FV and type, they're not in boldface, and that means that they're not required. So I'll click here in the rate box, and underneath it says rate is the interest rate per period for the loan. For example, use 6% divided by 4 for quarterly payments at 6% APR. Well, the interest rate to purchase my copier is 3.5% divided by, since I'll be making monthly payments, 12. Then I'll move the insertion point here to NPER. And NPER is described as the total number of payments for the loan. And I'm going to pay it off over 3 years, so that's 36 payments over that period of time. And then put the insertion point here in PV, and PV is the present value, the total amount that a series of future payments is worth now. So that would be, the loan is $3,500, so I'll type that in, and then I'll click OK. And the result is $102.56 is what my monthly payment would be, and the payment is formatted in red with parentheses because that's the way financial functions are formatted. Next, I'll show you another way to enter the same function. If you know the name of the function, you don't need to use the Insert Function button. I'll use the PMT function again, but this time I'm going to calculate the monthly payments on a home mortgage. I'll click in an empty cell and type my equal sign, and then I'll type P for payment, and what happens is you see Formula Autocomplete. It offers me a list of functions that start with P, and here's PMT. And if I wasn't sure if that was the function I was looking for, I could just see its description here. Calculates the payments for a loan based on constant payments and a constant interest rate. That's what I'm looking for. And I could just continue to type the function, but I'll just double click it to get it in along with my opening parentheses. And the arguments are listed below. Now if I wasn't sure, didn't really remember what the arguments were, I could click here on PMT and get a help topic that would describe the arguments for me. Now the first argument is rate, which is my interest rate, and that's 5%, and I'll divide it by 12 because I'll be making 12 monthly payments. When you're typing this formula on your own, you need to separate the arguments yourself, and so I'll just type a comma to do that. Then NPER is the next argument. That's the number of payments over 30 years. And I'll type 30 for 30 years times 12 because I'll be making 12 monthly payments. And I'll type a comma to separate NPER from the next argument, PV, which is the present value. And that's the present value of the loan amount, which is $180,000. And if you'll notice, The last two arguments, f, v, and type, have square brackets around them, and that means that they're not required for the formula. And I'll enter my closing parentheses and press enter, and the result is that my monthly mortgage payment would be $966.28. Next, I'll show you a function that you can use to work with text. You aren't confined to using functions with just numbers. You can also use them to work with text. For example, here's a list of employee names, and they're very badly formatted. The capitalization is just all over the place, and I'd like to just have the first letter of each name capitalized with the rest of the letters in lowercase. I'll place my insertion point here in cell B2 where I'm going to want my formula next to Nancy's name. Then I'll search for the function by clicking Insert Function. In the Search for a Function list, I'll type proper names, and then I'll click Go, and I get this return. The first function in the list is called proper, and I look at its description. It converts a text string to proper case, the first letter in each word in uppercase, and all other letters to lowercase. That's what I want, so I'll click OK. It enters proper into the spreadsheet here, and the function arguments dialog box is telling me that the only argument is text. And I want to get Nancy's name into the formula, so I'm just going to click in cell A2. That puts it in the box, and I'll click OK. And there's Nancy's name gone from all capitals to just proper name capitalization. I want to copy the formula. To repeat it, just grab the formula and release the mouse button, and there's my list of properly capitalized names. Now I've got two columns, and I only want one. And you'll notice if I click here in Nancy's name and then look up at the formula bar, you can see that there's a formula behind the name, and I really don't want that. I want to click, say here, and see Andrew's name up in the formula bar, not a formula. So I'm going to copy the list of properly formatted names by selecting it, right-click and click Copy. Then I'll select the list with badly formatted names, right-click, and in the Paste Options box, there's an option here to just paste values, which is what I want. I don't want to paste the formulas. I'll click, and I'll press Escape to get rid of the marquee around all these names in column B. Then if I click here and look in the formula bar, we can see Nancy's name without a formula. Over here, you can see that there's still the formulas, and I'll just delete this column since I don't need it any longer. And now I'm left with just one column. And that's the end of the course.